Hello guys, welcome to Top Wisdom. Today's lesson is about market failures. So I'm going to explain each and everything that falls under market failure. So I need you guys to listen carefully so that you can understand this. I'm going to explain what are market failures. So as a beginner, you should listen carefully so that you could understand. It's better to understand. So I'm not going to explain with the aid of graph, but I'm just going to explain what falls under market failures and how does it work so that you can understand what is market failure. That's the purpose of this video. You should understand what is market failure, not to cram. So without wasting any time, let's go in here. I'm going to start with a term and definition, the things you need to know about the market failure first, by starting with market failure, the definition of market failure. Market failure occurs when the resources of the community are allocated inefficiently. I'm going to explain again. Occurs when the resources of the community are allocated inefficiently. So that's the definition of market failure, which is not that important because they won't ask you that in exam because it's very easy. So cost benefit analysis, that one is very important. It's very important. So if I were you now, I'll go and take a glass of water and drink and listen carefully so that I wouldn't forget this. A. Cost benefit analysis is a method used to compare the total social cost and benefit of alternative project activities or investment. I'm going to explain again. It compares the total social cost and benefit. The total social cost. Social cost. Do you know social cost? What is social? Do you know social cost? What is social? So let's take as if that as a community. Let's just say it's a community cost and benefit. So I could put that on easier terms so that you can understand. Social cost and benefits of alternative projects and activities or investment. By now you know investment, you are in grade 12, you are older now. So we are going to Pareto efficiency. Refers to the situation where resources cannot be reallocated to make one person or group better off without making another person worse off. We see this every day. So this meaning, this definition confuses first, especially when you hear this first time. It will confuse you. So I want to explain this in simpler terms. As it says here, it refers to the situation where resources cannot be reallocated to make one person better off. So it cannot be reallocated. That simply means you cannot take something from other person and give it to the other person without affecting another person. You get my point, right? Yes, you get my point, because when you go buy in ShopRite, you get taxed, and those taxes affect your life. They affect your life. Then those taxes go to another person, a person who maybe is broke or poor, so that he or she can have a stable life too. But it also affects you. It doesn't mean that it does not affect you. It affects you. So resources cannot be reallocated to make one person better off without making another person worse off. That simply means when I take something from you, I'm making that person to be worse off. Then I give it to another person. That person will be better off, obviously, because now he has more apples or something like that. It's like, for example, John has one apple and Jimmy has one apple. I take one apple from John and give it to Jimmy. Now Jimmy has 2 apples. John has 0 apples. That simply means John is affected. But Jimmy is now better off because he's now has even more apples. That's a grade 1 theory, by the way. Black market. I don't know how old are you now. Maybe you are obviously 18 above, because most of the matriculants are 18, but you don't know black market. That means you have a problem. It's a very serious problem. But anyway, black market, an illegal market in which illegal goods are bought and sold or illegal prices or are charged. Things like that, where you can get a kidney. So market failure takes place if the market is not efficient, by the way. When the required production levels, for example, I'm making an example, when the required production levels are not achieved or resources are not efficiently allocated. Sometimes free markets fail to produce the quantities of goods and services that people want. So free market fail, as I'm saying now, free market fail to produce the quantities of goods and services that the people want. Market failures are caused by the following, which are externalities, public goods, merit and demerit goods, imperfect competition, and other. So market failures occurs when the market is not operating efficiently and resources are not allocated efficiently. So that's all you need to know about market failures. One of the most important things you need to know about market failures. So now I'm going to the market failure causes. I'm going to go deep now. I'm going deep. I'm going deep, like in the ocean. So what causes market failures? 1. Take the ball pen now and take the glass of water. Not juice, not cold drink. Those things will slow you down, will slow your brain down. Drink water. Take a water and drink and take a ball pen. 1. Externalities. That's number 1. That causes market failure. Number 2, missing market. Number 3, imperfect competition. Number 4, lack of information. Number 5, immobility of factors of production. 6, imperfect distribution of income and wealth. That's all you need to know here. So in market failures, we have what we call government intervention. If you're in grade 12, I think the teacher might have taught you this anyway. So, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm just going to explain fast. And in government, we have government cannot just allow markets to fail, as it will be bad for people in the country, by the way. They therefore intervene to limit the consequences of market failure. So it can be said that the government intervention is positive consequence of market failure. So the government here plays a certain role. As I said, the government intervenes so that it could not affect the people. So I'm going to say here, because we are focusing here on grade 12s, here. Government intervention. I'm going to say possible essays, things that you need to know. These are the really, really, really important ones, because they could come out on essays. So you wouldn't want to throw that 40 marks in the garbage, right? So you need to know this. Possible essays. You must know how to discuss in detail the state intervention as a consequence of market failure with the aid of relevant graphs. I'm sure now you have a document or textbook which has graphs about this. So I'm going to say direct control. You need to know what is direct control. Imperfect market, minimum wages, maximum wages, minimum prices, tax and subsidies on goods and services, redistribution of wealth, government involvement in production. Those are all things you need to know. So I'm going to market failures now. Market failures, direct controls. So I'm going to explain what are direct controls. Things you need to know about direct controls that you didn't understand when the teacher tells you this, because the teacher has taught you this, but because you don't listen, you don't understand. So here, listen. You have to understand here. I want you, when you finish watching this video, I want you to know what are direct controls. There's no need to study them anymore, because now you know them. There's no need to study them anymore. It's like knowing your name. So I don't want to waste any time. I'll go straight to the point here. Straight to the point. Direct controls. The government can pass laws or use existing legislative framework to control business that generate negative externalities. So in South Africa, potential dangerous Dangerous things are like gases, air pollution, environment pollution are controlled by laws and regulations. For example, cigarette advertisements are illegal in South Africa because cigarette is very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous, cigarette. I don't say don't smoke cigarette or things like that because this is not based on the lesson. We are talking in terms of economics here, as they say that cigarette advertisements are illegal in South Africa because cigarettes can damage your lungs. We all know that. But I don't say don't smoke cigarette, by the way. But anyway, the government passes laws and uses existing legislative framework to control businesses that generate negative externalities. Those things are negative externalities. That simply means they they affect people. Those things affect people, like air pollution. In South Africa we have companies, I won't mention those companies, that cause air pollution. I won't mention companies because I will get arrested. So we have companies that cause air pollution. So the government can, when the government passes out laws, they tax those companies. They cause pollution. They must be taxed. They cause pollution. Those pollution affect people. So they tax those companies or pass out laws in order to control the situation. So we are done about direct controls. Just know when we talk about direct control, just write down now direct controls and write pass laws or use legislative framework to control businesses. Done. That's way. Now you know what are direct controls. There's no need to study them anymore. You know them. Market failures, imperfect markets. Firms in an imperfect market supply a limited quantity of goods and services at a very high price. The government uses its laws on competition to prevent exorbitant prices charged by firms in order to ensure that entry to the market is free, to prevent harmful collusion, and to encourage foreign competition, which helps keep prices of goods low. So as I've said here, it's very straightforward. I've said something that's very straightforward to understand. But I'm going to explain on another terms because I know that some of you guys don't understand. Even though we tell you something that's very straightforward, you still don't understand. But anyway, I will explain. So, as I've said, imperfect markets supply a limited quantity of goods and services at a very high price. So another thing is that the government tries to control the competition. Imagine if all of these companies, gonna make an example about companies that sell basic needs, for example, like Pick and Pay, ShopRite, and Boxer, and other companies. So what if those companies form a collaboration? They come and join as one. Obviously, they will charge higher price. Imagine, for example, Apple. You're buying an apple, which is a fruit, by the way, not the iPhone. An apple for 50 rand. One apple for 50 rand. Because you have no choice. That will affect you. It will affect you that much. It will affect you too much. So that's what the government is trying to do. It's trying to help you buy on fair prices, reasonable prices, not on prices that are very ridiculous, reasonable prices. So that's what the government is trying to do. So they should not form a collaboration, by the way, where two businesses form one businesses, or collusion, which you have been taught on economics about imperfect markets. I'm sure you know this by now. So that's part of the laws of competition to prevent exorbitant prices, high prices, very, very high prices charged by firms. So that's what's important, and to make sure that entry is free, so that getting to enter here, maybe like you want to start your own Pick and Pay, which most of the time will fail. I won't say that you don't start your own business, by the way, but you can't compete with bigger prices, with bigger companies. It's very, very difficult. But anyway, if you wanna be, that if you have a big vision, you can start your own business and compete with Pick and Pay. So, as I've said here, that the government does not want that. Does not want the competition to end. It's important that the country, the companies have competition so that it will benefit the consumers. They will charge reasonable prices. So now I'm going to minimum wage. Minimum wage. Which minimum wage has a graph, by the way. It has a graph. That's minimum wage has a graph, by the way. So I won't lie, it has a graph. Minimum wage has a graph. A minimum wage can lead to unemployment. However, the quantity of the labor supplied will increase Q to Q2. By the way, that's in the graph. More people will offer their labor because of the higher wage. So, minimum wage, a wage rate set by the government, below which no employer can pay their workers. Annually, the government announces an increase with regard to these wages. So, what is minimum wage in South Africa? Minimum wage in South Africa is 3,500, 3.5, as we all know. If you have been a worker, you know that many workers earn 3.5. That's a minimum wage. So, a minimum wage actually affects the company in some point, especially the companies that are not big, because other companies do not afford to pay 3,500 to 200 people. So they end up cutting off people and say, okay, if we can cut off 80 people, we can be able to pay that specific amount. But if the minimum wage can be decreased to 1,500, for example, maybe minimum wage is decreased to 1,500, that simply means that's beneficial for companies. They will hire more people. That simply means employment will increase. It will increase. But at some point, it will affect people. 1,500 is not enough. It was never enough. If you are a worker, you know that. 1,500 was never enough. It's never enough. Maybe people spend 1,000 on transport. So 1,500 is not enough. Which is there. Everything has been explained by now. And I'm sure by now you understand what is minimum wage. So I'm going to go to maximum prices. Maximum price. By now you know what is maximum. Which is a higher limit. So maximum, you know what is maximum. So I'm going to explain what is maximum price. The government sets a maximum price below the market price to make goods more affordable. Yes, I've explained this. I'm sure by now you see them. When you see your glass of water, you see that. I know. This guy has explained what is this. Maximum price. To make prices more affordable. I've told you about the government intervention that is to make prices affordable. Imagine paying one apple. I've made an example about apples. Not iPhones, apples. I've made an example why government intervenes. But as I've said, the maximum price, that's part of the law that the government issues out, the maximum price. So that to make goods to be affordable to other people that needs them, to the people, especially to the people who are broke, who don't have money. So this is also known as price ceiling. As you know, the ceiling is in front of the roof. By the way, yeah. Price ceiling. Maximum prices allow the poor greater access to certain goods and services. The poor. By the way, being poor and being broke is not the same thing. So the poor allows the poor to have greater access. That simply means the poor is someone who doesn't even afford basic needs. That's the meaning of being poor. You have seen people say, at home we are poor. No. Someone who's poor doesn't even afford basic needs. That simply means the person can sleep hungry, doesn't afford anything. So maximum prices allows the poor to have greater access to certain goods and services. So now the poor have more advantage now. They have advantage now. They can be able to afford to buy apples or bread, not to buy bread for 100 rand. So, maximum prices is set on goods such as basic foods, housing, and transport. Write that down. Basic foods and housing and transport. That's very important in your life. So, in South Africa, the price of petrol, diesel fuel, and paraffin are controlled at their maximum prices. At their maximum prices. The price of petrol, as you have seen, guys, that in 2022, that the price of petrol went up, and everybody was affected by that. Everybody in South Africa, everybody, we were not happy about the petrol. Nobody was happy about the petrol because it went up. Even the people who are riding taxis, they were not happy because the taxis now increased their price. So maximum prices, that's when you see that these things affect everybody. Petrol goes up, taxis goes up, and food prices goes up because people who deliver food now have to charge higher because of petrol. Everybody now increases their things now. So this is very important for the government to intervene. It's very important because by now, you know, if you were living in 2022, your eyes were open in 2022, you know this. Or if you watch the news, you know this. So I don't want to waste any time now. Going to the government intervene, passes law that milk cannot be sold for more than what. For that's an example. So that's how the government passes their laws here. So here it also has a graph, which is maximum prices. So it also has a graph here. It has maximum prices, shortage, and things like that. So by now, you understand what is maximum price. You understand them. If you don't understand what is maximum price now, I definitely don't know how to explain to you, because I have explained everything you need to know about maximum price. I've explained every example that's possible. Every example that's possible. But anyway, that's when a black market is an illegal market, which either illegal goods are bought and sold at illegal prices and are charged. That's when the black market come in, because they are selling illegal goods and at illegal prices, at weird prices. You there in the black market is illegal because you find things like kidney for 500,000, things like that. So yeah, I won't talk about the black market because we are not talking about the black market here. We're talking about the market failure. Positive impact: maximum prices improves the welfare of some consumers since goods can be purchased at a lower price. That's something that's positive for all of us here. For all of us. So now you understand what a maximum price. I won't say it again. I've explained what a maximum price is. Now you guys understand what is a maximum price. So I'm going to the minimum price now. Going to the minimum price now. So what's important about the minimum price? The government sets a minimum price at some point above the market price. The government sets a minimum. You know what is minimum? Minimum price at some point above the market price, which when we can call this a price floor because the floor is down. This is done to enable producers to make a comfortable profit, and thus encouraging them to supply important essential goods. As I've said here, I am telling you this again. This is part of government intervention. Now the government is taking another side. The government does not just only help the consumers, it also helps businesses. So imagine forming a business and the government tells you you're not going to sell this by this. So you end up not making a profit. You will close the business, obviously, which means there will be people who will lose their job and people will not get access to the needs that or wants that you are selling, especially the needs. So the government sets minimum prices so that it can encourage, but the government is not a he or a she, it's the government. The government sets minimum prices so that the government can can encourage businesses to continue supplying important and essential goods so that the businesses won't close down and leave the country, things like that. So that they can make a profit, by the way, so that if I'm putting it to simpler terms. So here it also has a table which above there it has a surplus and minimum price. You can see there from your textbook. I'm sure they gave you the textbook. So minimum price have negative impact, which a surplus means the government will have to buy extra wheat and dump it locally abroad. That's the negative impact. Buying extra wheat and dump it, give it to people who need it. So for free, when you dump something, you give it away for free. Positive impact. Although minimum prices may cause surplus, they do not encourage supply of important foodstuffs. So some of the things, it might help here. It might help, but this does not encourage supply of important foodstuffs. But it's positive because it encourages surplus. That's the most important thing to know here. That's why it's positive, because it encourages surplus, the thing that we need as the government. So yeah. So that's all you need to know about minimum price. So we are going to the real deal now. Levying of taxes. What everybody in the world hates. Taxes. These are what everybody hates. Government intervene in market by levying taxes to recover the external costs. This could help to reduce negative externalities such as pollution. As I've explained here about taxes, why the government taxes the cigarette companies, things like that, so that the companies won't oversupply, things like that. But here the government intervenes and takes away and taxes such companies that causes pollutions in the world. In South Africa, by the way, if you are in South Africa, takes the money and reduce it and recover external costs. That's what the government do. Just remember that it recovers external costs. Just write that down. So now I'm going to subsidy. So subsidy. In South Africa, we are very familiar with this word subsidy because we see it every day. Where the government gives subsidies. Government gives free houses. The government gives free things everywhere we go in South Africa. There are free things. And we take them because they are free. We all love free things in South Africa. So subsidies lower the cost of producing goods as well as the market price. I'm going to explain again because this is very straightforward. The subsidy. I'm explaining in English here. You have been learning English since grade 1. I mean since grade 2, by the way, because some of them started grade 2 to grade 12. Started learning English 10 years ago. You must know this by now. Subsidies lower the cost of producing goods as well as the market price. They lower the cost of producing goods. Write that down. They lower the cost. That's the aim, to lower the cost of producing goods. The market, then after they lower the cost, this helps everybody, obviously. The government provides subsidies to producers in order to encourage them to increase the production of goods. So now, as the government meets me halfway, I'm selling, maybe let's say, the government meets me halfway. Just know that the government meets me halfway of my production. Let's say to produce cigarettes. Let's say I'm producing cigar. Do you know cigar? Cigar is a cigarette which is expensive. So let's say I'm selling cigar, for example. I'm selling cigar, and the cost of production of producing a cigar is 5,000. So obviously, after I'm done producing the cigar at 5,000, I'm going to sell it at 8,000 so that I can make a profit. So the government meets me halfway and says, okay, I'm gonna give you 3,000. So the cost of production has costed me, I'm talking about me now, not talking about the government. It's costed me 2,000. So obviously I'm going to sell the cigar at 5,000 to make a profit of 3,000 again. But that will benefit the consumer because the consumer won't be buying at 8,000 like by now. He or she will be buying. So let me just say he, because people who smoke cigar most of the time are males. He will buy at 5,000, especially people who are rich males. So those are subsidies. We have been seeing subsidies for houses, things like that in South Africa, where it's open see things like that. People asking for subsidy for houses, things like that. So yeah, that's how it works. So this increases supply. As I've said, producer subsidies are often given to suppliers of agriculture products most of the time, such as milk and wheat and maize. So we are going to another thing now. Market failures. We're still on market failures. Redistribution of wealth. Redistribution of traditional methods, e.g. the levying of various taxes, the provision of free services, service in kind of cash benefits to the poor, subsidizing merited goods, and subsidizing art and cultural events. So I've explained everything about the redistribution of wealth now. Implementing redress methods, e.g. the use of law to enforce redistribution, triple PEE, affirmative action, empowerment, land and restitution, land and redistribution property subsidies. For example, RDP, where I talk about subsidies that are always being given in South Africa, which are RDP, which benefit a lot of people in South Africa, so that it can increase housing in South Africa, by the way. So imposes tax. That's what redistribution of wealth does. Imposes tax and laws on demerit goods to discourage consumption. If you don't know demerit goods and merit goods, go to my video here, go to my channel and search and look for demerit and merit good, or go to the description. You will see a link there, and click there and watch that video so that you can understand what are demerit and merit goods. So I'm not going to waste my time here explaining something I've explained before. Uses of fiscal and monetary policy to achieve macroeconomic stability. That's what they do. Make sure that consumers are informed about products through legislation. The South African Bureau of Standards checks the consumers' goods in South Africa. So, going to in here, redistribution of wealth, going to explain more and more. The government can use other ways to improve income distribution and overcome market failures. Like, for example, transfers income directly to the poor, child grants. These are things that the government does, that we see, so that the government can stabilize the economy. There's child support grants, unemployment benefits. Like, for example, now some of the people are earning 350s in 2022. That's beneficial. That's very beneficial in South Africa, because now people can get access to food and any other things, other important things like food and alcohol and clothes. Yes, alcohol is important. It's needed in the body. So another thing is that the government implements employment creation programs, public work programs, tries to prevent misleading advertising. That's what the government does in order on market failures, on redistribution of wealth. As it says for itself, redistribution of wealth. We give away wealth. That's what it says for itself. So, going to another topic now. I'm going to another thing now. Market failures, involvement in production. So, provides public goods and service for free, such as community goods, education, health service. Provides public goods and services such as collective goods, parks, refusal, removals. Some collective goods are provided at a user fee and some are subsidized. People pay taxes to the government in order for the government to supply these goods and services. That's how the world works. There are people who pay taxes in order for these goods to be given away or to be made, like parks. And in order for the grant to be there, people must pay taxes. That's how the world works. If you don't know that, you have a problem. Because where social grants come from, social grants comes from taxes. You need to know this by now. We all contribute to your social grant. If you are earning a social grant, we all contribute to that. So yeah, you need to know that. So now I have to say what I've explained here, what I've covered here. I've covered minimum wage, maximum price, which are price ceiling, minimum price, and levying of taxation. I've covered all of the things that fall under market failures, like subsidies. So since I'm done covering up these things, the most important things here, subscribe to the channel and like the video, guys, and share the video to the people who might need to know this information. And subscribe so that you can get part 2. Hit the bell icon there so that you can get notified when I release the part 2, which I will be explaining externalities, missing markets, imperfect competition, lack of information, immobility of factors of production, and other things here that are important here. I'm going to be explaining further on part 2, which I'm going further to explain private cost and everything and social benefits. So subscribe to the channel here and hit the bell icon and share the video. Click the share button here, copy the link and share to your group or where you make group, because in Matrix you make group on WhatsApp. Share there, share everywhere. Peace.